Welcome to the Millennial Body Image Project. We're two licensed dietitian nutritionists bringing you conversations that cut through the food noise, debunk wellness trends, and remind you that it's not you, it's the systems stacked against you.
Together, we'll explore the struggles so many of us carry, challenge the fear-mongering that fuels them, and offer evidence-based, compassionate tools to support your body on its own terms.
Because your lived experience matters, and your body is not the problem.
Welcome back to our Best Books episode. This time, I thought it would be fun to do things a little bit differently. I was somehow thinking about superlatives and stuff like people do in yearbooks. And I had seen some people on book YouTube doing this also. And so instead of going through our list of, oh, here's my 5 best books, here's my 5 surprises, here's my whatever, I figured we would have favorite book of the year, favorite book that wasn't fantasy, best series, different stuff. And we can just talk about 1, maybe 2 in each category. So it would be like little fun book awards and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to start with the same thing we did last year, which is the roast of ourselves. So last year we said, oh, we're definitely going to read or at least attempt these 3 books. You look like you're dreading it right now.
You go first, because I remember what yours is. Can I say it?
Yeah.
You were supposed to read City of Brass, and you did it.
Read it. Yeah,
Read it.
I did it. I had some, what I would call I'm proud of myself achievement reads this year of things that, those books that you're 95% sure you're going to love them. But because of that, you're so intimidated to read them because what if you don't like them? And then you're also waiting for the perfect time for them to come up and it just never comes up. So City of Brass was one of those. It was sitting on my shelves. I finally read it. I'm definitely going to be talking about that later. My other one was Blood Over Brighthaven by Emma Long. Read it. We'll definitely be talking about it later. And then I think the third one I put was the last book in the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, because I wanted to finish out that series and not just let it dangle forever. It was a trilogy. And I finished it. It was good. The circumstances under which I finished it were not the best because I was in and out of millions of doctor's appointments. But I think that might have clouded my enjoyment of that book. But I did read all of them. So you had, and I know the answer to some of these, but you had Realmbreaker by Victoria Aveyard as your first one.
Did not do that.
You attempted it. You attempted it.
A page, which I do this every single year. I try to read that book, and I still have not. Okay. So
Okay, but you've attempted it multiple times.
multiple times. Okay. What else can I say?
Spark of the Everflame.
I did read that,
And you're going to talk about it.
and I'm going to talk about it.
And then The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo.
I did not read that. Did not even attempt it, but definitely on my list for sure.
Okay. Well, let's start off with some positivity. What is your favorite book that you read this year?
So tough because there's a couple, and my top 3 are honestly kind of even. But if I had to pick, I'm probably going to choose Heartless Hunter, which is a duology. The second book is Rebel Witch by Kristen. You know that I'm always terrible with the names, but Kristen Ciccarelli.
Yeah, I think it's
absolutely fantastic. I mean, the writing, absolutely fantastic. The love interest is true enemies to lovers. I think that's something that that trope has become so exhausted. Everything is advertised as enemies to lovers. And it's this does not count. I want them to hate each other. If there's not a near-death experience, if one does not try to physically stab the other, it does not count. I want Rowan punching Aelin in the face. Enemies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is one is genuinely hunting down the other because she's the witch. It's honestly, and also huge thing for me is pacing. And these are well-paced books. These are 400-page reads, maybe less, honestly. But it does not draw on and on and on. Excellently paced books. So I'm gonna put that as my number 1.
Yeah, I read that last year and I flew through it. I'm so glad you read that one because I feel when I texted you about it, you were in that kind of reading mood. You're I just need something that's good and that's going to grip me. And I was looking back through my stuff from last year and I was oh, this one, you can get it on Kindle Unlimited, I think. and then you're just flying through it. And I was like,
Oh,
finally,
yeah.
she had a good one.
It's on Kindle Unlimited, which honestly, I feel like I wish I would have done that as my homework for this podcast. There are so many fantastic fantasy series that are now available on KU. Because KU,
Mm-hmm.
you think is just like usually like indie authors or like smutty books. And there's some like The Prison Healer is one of my favorite books of
Yeah.
all time. And now that's on KU. So yeah, it's on
Mm-hmm.
KU. We don't have to wait for it from the library. Yeah, highly recommend.
Yeah. My favorite book of the year, I actually think I read it a year ago today
Mhm.
or like around this time when we're recording, which is like halfway through January. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to read another book that's as good as this. Like, it was a good thing, but I was like, ooh, starting the year off with a bang. But I was also like, is nothing going to live up to this? And it's Blood Over Brighthaven,
Yeah.
which is one of my top 3 reads that I wanted to read this year. But so I'm part of a couple different book clubs. Like, one is online as part of like somebody else's Patreon community, and they were reading it in January last year. And I need everyone to read this book. So, first of all, it is a standalone epics fantasy, but it's not a million pages. It's like just over 400 pages. Also paced extremely well. Morally gray main character in the sense that like you're definitely rooting for her at some points, and then at other points you're like, what is wrong with you? Like, do you hear what is coming out of your mouth right now? And so you like want to bash her over the head. But this story is so multi-layered, and in a way it is really similar to how you described feeling at the beginning of The Bridge Kingdom in like that first chapter. When you
Mhm.
read the first chapter of this book, you cannot stop because you read that and your eyes are so wide and you're like, what? And there were so many moments of that sprinkled throughout the book. Like, you think you know what's about to happen, and then they're like, no, this. And you're like, what? And then you have one of those moments, and then everything that you have seen in the story leading up to it is colored in a different way. And you're like, oh my God. And the ending, oh my, so good. It's also a very interesting and unique magic system. It's based off of, I think it's called like typography, basically. So there's this city and it's like the center of the universe, basically. And the way that it's described is like everything outside of the city is like barren wastelands, and there are people that live out there, but there's like a blight that's going on. That's some kind of like, you don't know at the beginning of the book if it's like a creature or if it's a type of magic or if it's like a weather pattern, but it's just like stealing these people, and like everyone dies who lives outside of the city. And then the magic system inside the city that powers everything from lighting to water to all this other stuff, it's based on these high mages that have these basically like magical typewriters, and they will write in a certain numerical formula and then it creates a magical reaction, which is so cool. Which, like, it was a little bit confusing at first, but then a couple of chapters in, you're like, oh, I get this. The twists and turns that this story takes, and then the really interesting character dynamics and how like you think you're rooting for some people and then you find out stuff about them and you're like, oh God, no, I can't root for them anymore. And then there's certain groups of people that are facing like really intense discrimination and stuff. And so you're rooting for them to like come out of where they are, and also like understanding their background. It's just, I have not shut up about this book all year. And when I tell you, I think I read it like the second week of January a year ago. I have given it to everyone to read who is a reader. So if you take nothing else from this podcast, please read Blood Over Bright.
Amazing.
Okay. What about, do you have a best book that wasn't fantasy or fantasy romance?
I do. It's a nonfiction audiobook. So I listened to, because it was, as you've mentioned before in this podcast, like it was written by a celebrity, particularly like an actor or actress. You just have to go audiobook. So I listened to Dinner for Vampires by Bethany Joy Lenz. Definitely watched One Tree Hill in high school.
Oh,
And my
mhm.
feel good podcast for the longest times was Drama Queens, which took the 3 actresses of this show and they did a rewatch podcast of it. And she mentioned on the podcast that she was in a cult for like the entire time she was on this TV show. And immediately I don't know, different publishers started contacting her. I read articles about it afterwards, and I was like, she wrote this entire book in 2 months. I mean, she just banged it out. So I listened to this audiobook, and essentially what happened is she's a very religious person. All of her best friends, came from church when she was growing up. And when she moved to LA and she was working in the industry and, difficult to make friends, she joins this Bible study. And these people who've been to this Bible study immediately kind of take it over. And essentially, step by step, it becomes a cult. They have they literally call it the big house. They have a house where they stay. In the book, she says it's Idaho, but again, I did a lot of research on this afterwards, and I think it's actually in Washington State where this, mansion was.
Mm.
And essentially everyone in this cult was getting married up, and she basically makes the decision, like, "I'm not gonna be left behind." And so she marries the cult leader's son, and it is just a horror story from day one. This is a book that makes you want to put your fist through the wall and you wanna scream at this girl, don't do that,
Yeah.
don't get involved with these people. But what made this book so impactful is, one of the most life-changing things that happened to me in 2025 is one of my best friends on the planet Earth got divorced from a narcissist who I hate with the passion of 100 suns. And one of the biggest themes of this book is that a cult is narcissism in group format.
Yeah. Mhm.
Even if you have never dated a narcissist. And by the way, there's also a lot of religious manipulation and gaslighting in this book. But even if you're not a religious person, even if you're not sure if you've ever dated a clinical narcissist, every girl, I mean, every woman on earth has dated someone who gaslit her and who manipulated her. That's just a universal fact. Have to read this book because the parallels are so insane. I binged this audiobook so fast. I listened to it in 2 days. And exact scenes that took place, in this woman's life was happening to my best friend in real time.
Oh my god.
Exact scenes. And I'm not going to put my friend's information out there, but she was actively, in the throes of her divorce, and something happened to her and with her soon-to-be ex-husband's family that, the exact scene was in this book. Just it's the narcissist's playbook is so painfully and horrifically predictable. It was just, I was, texting her. I was like, "Oh my god, this exact thing just happened in this book." And so she listened to it, and she finished it in a day. So, yeah, that was definitely, I mean, it was horrific, but it's phenomenal. Highly recommend.
Okay, well, mine is definitely a tonal shift for
Yeah, seriously.
yours. Well, mine is a cozy mystery. I mentioned the first book in this series last year, but it's called Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man. Speaking of a phenomenal audiobook, so Vera Wong is this 60-something-year-old Chinese woman who lives in San Francisco. She owns a tea shop and she is the nosiest person ever. And so she likes to be up in everybody's business. And in the first book, a dead body shows up in her tea shop on a random morning when she's getting up at 4 a.m. to do her brisk walk and all her exercises and stuff. And she's like, "Oh, I'll just get it ready for the police." So she outlines the body in chalk and she cleans up the area. And she calls the police. She's like, "There's a dead body in my tea shop." And they come over and they're like, "What do you mean? You just cleaned up? You're messing up a crime scene. This is literally illegal." And she's like, "Oh, I wasn't sure if you were going to do a good job, so I did it myself." And so she basically takes it upon herself. There's another death, obviously, in this new book, and she takes it upon herself to solve the mystery. And there's a ragtag group of people that are somehow all connected to it, and they kind of become a found family. The audiobook for this is so, so good because you get different voices for each perspective. Also, aside from the deaths, it's a pretty heartwarming series. So if you just need a really fun palette cleanser in between heavier books or big fantasy books or anything like that, I will say this one definitely had darker elements to it than the first one that made it a little bit more intense. but I still like protect Vera at all costs. Like it is such a great like feel good series. And there's only 2 of them right now. Like I assume there will be another one eventually. And it's one of those series where you don't have to read them in order. Like it will hit harder if you do. And there will be more connections. You'll understand the character relationships more, but you could just read it on its own too.
Oh, amazing.
It was a good time. Okay. Best series or best first book in a series?
So I'll say my
Okay.
favorite series was people you're gonna laugh because it's so ridiculous. The Faye Academy for Spies series. That's literally what the series is called. The first one is
It sounds fun.
I know, right? It's so ridiculous. It's literally about a spy school for Faye. The first one is called Avalon Tower, and it's by C.N. Crawford. C.N. Crawford is arguably my favorite indie author of all time. Her books are always very quick. She reads multiple books a year, by the way. I don't know how she does it. They're always very quick. She always does like a morally gray MC. The FMC is always just a riot. I really love her writing. Romantasy is typically her genre. And this series got me out of my. I read Avalon Tower, which she had a co-writer for, and I loved it. But book 2, which is called Veil of Dreams, the second book in the series, was 6 stars. It was just so much fun to read. So essentially, Fae are outlawed, and essentially King Arthur's court is like originally Fae, and they're like
Mhm.
trying to like save like the Fae in the world. But it was such a good time. The morally gray MC of the series, I'm not gonna do spoilers there, but of the series is like true morally gray. I remember reading a review of book 1, which again, I thoroughly enjoyed. And someone had written, it would have been so much more interesting if the author just would have written about XYZ. Well, that
Mhm.
XYZ happened in book 2. And it sure as shit made it
Oh.
like much more interesting.
Oh,
So,
that's
yeah,
cool.
it was just like it was such a good time. When I read it, I was texting Dana, and I had to wait 1 month to read book 3. 1 month, that's it. And it was agony. It was sheer agony. I was like, "Oh my god." And it just felt so good after being such a slump to, like, have that feeling of, "Oh my god, author, you're killing me. Just publish your damn book
Yeah.
so I can binge this."
That's good though. That's like a "this is why I love reading" kind of moment, you
Yeah.
know?
It was like the first book in 2 years where I totally took a day off work because I wouldn't put my book down, which you should not do, but at the same time, like, I was just like, I can't could not stop.
It's a mental health day.
Yes, mental health day.
Okay, well, my best series is actually City of Brass.
Yeah,
So and
nice.
I was so happy about this. City of Brass is the first book. It's actually called the Daevabad trilogy. The first book is City of Brass. I remember being, like, not even halfway through that book, like, maybe a third of the way through that book, and I was so enraptured by how well I could picture everything and just it felt like I was there, and I literally had a moment sitting in bed where I was like, "This book is why I love reading." And it made
Mm.
me so happy because I was like, "Oh my god, I this book has been sitting on my shelves since 2020." Like, since bookstores opened up again after COVID and we went to Barnes& and Noble and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't wait to get some books." It has been sitting on my shelf for it had been 5 years at that point. So I read this in October, and when I tell you that I ordered the second book so fast that I immediately went into the second book. I never, ever do that with fantasy books anymore, especially, like, chonky fantasy books, because I'm worried that I'm gonna, like, burn myself out on the series, and I like to take a little bit of a break so I can, like, get excited about the characters again. Nope, 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 nope. Immediately ordered the second book. As soon as it got here, I started the next day after I finished book 1 because it also ends on such a cliffhanger, but this is, like, exactly the kind of book that I like. If you like the djinn or, like, the magic aspect of the Ember and the Ashes series, you will like this book. If you like complex, morally gray female leads, you will like this book. Also, this is not a fantasy romance in the sense that you have like you're following one couple the whole time. And oh my God, it continues to expand and there's so many different layers. And it's one of those also where I think in the first book you're following one perspective, and then in the second book you have two perspectives, and the third book you have three perspectives. And the perspectives that they choose to follow are so interesting because some of the characters, when you first meet them, you're like, oh my God, this person is extremely unlikable. They are irredeemable. Like, there's no way. And the way that this author makes you care about certain characters when you know they have done horrific shit in their past, you're just like, how do you do this? She's such a great author. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Highly, highly, highly recommend this book. It is I think for you, you might think it is a little bit more slower paced. I love books like that, so that obviously does not bother me, but just go into it knowing that. And I don't get me wrong, the second and third books were still 5 stars, but the first one for me was like a 6 star. So it was great. That was one of my accomplishment reads this year, so I'm really happy that I read it.
Amazing.
Okay. The book that was like, or series that was the biggest gut punch or like most emotional or hits you in the feels. I guess that could have been Dinner for Vampires
Okay,
too.
actually, yeah, I do have one. Yeah, I was gonna say you can't say gut punch. That was Dinner for Vampires for sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say The Kiss of Deception, which is the first
Mm.
book of the Remnant Chronicles. It was so good. What I love more than anything, like even if a book is mid, if a book tricks me, like genuinely tricks me, and this has happened like 3 times, 3 books I can remember, where I genuinely had to reread the page because I was like, "Wait a minute, there's no way." And I do not, oh my God, do not look up the Remnant Chronicles or The Kiss of Deception on Goodreads. Just like, do not go there, okay? Like,
People spoil it?
because everyone was talking about this. Like, I had to like
Oh, God. Okay.
close the book, Google it, because I was like, no way. Did I just misunderstand the entire book? That's literally how much of a switch that the author pulled the rug out from under me. It's a good YA series. It's a trilogy.
Yeah.
And essentially, you have this crown princess. She has lived a very sheltered life. And she is going to be arranged marriage, I think on her 16th birthday. And her best friend, who is roughly like her handmaiden, for lack of a better term, they run away. And they make it. She's very, very clever. And they go to a small town and they literally work in a restaurant. And 2 people come after her because she was had an arranged marriage with the prince of another kingdom. And in this world, there's essentially like 3 primary kingdoms. So Princess from Kingdom 1 is arranged to be married to Prince of Kingdom 2.
Okay.
He goes after her. And then an assassin from Kingdom 3 sent to stop the marriage, to stop the alliance, also goes after her. So, I do not think this is a spoiler, but essentially you're dealing with a love triangle between those people, which it's a fun time, like, but also it was very clever. And that's all I can really say without giving anything away, but something I genuinely thought, like, I didn't know I was being baited and switched on this. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't think that was even part of the plot. I didn't realize what was
Yeah.
happening until it happened. I was like, huh? No way did I just reread an entire, like, because it was like towards the end of the book. I was like, did I just misread 300 pages? I was like flipping back. And I was like, there's no way. And then, so I had to go
Yeah.
online and find, and yeah, so
Oh my God.
that was a gut punch in the fact that I genuinely did not expect it.
Okay. Oh God. Okay, I'm gonna say mine, and then the next one I'm gonna ask you about is like a book that you or a series that you couldn't stop thinking about or like took
Mhm.
up a lot of your brain space this year. Because mine is actually one and the same. So this is Jade City, the entire series. So biggest gut punch. I won't tell you what book it happened in, But honestly, there are gut punches in all 3 of these books. Holy crap. So this is Jade City, if you've never heard of it, is basically like The Godfather, and there's also a big martial arts component and gangs, but there's also a magic system based on jade, the mineral. If you have jade, then it gives you, in a way, like superhuman abilities. So it makes you like either really strong, or they have this skill that's called perception, where they can like sense people's heartbeats or how people are feeling or other stuff like that. You can also use it for like medical healing purposes. It's mostly in this world used for combat, right? With these like 2 warring families. And it's one of those books where like in the first book, there's a pretty narrow focus, but you don't even realize it's a narrow focus until the second book, and then it expands even more in the third book. And like, just there's no romance in this. This book series is so brutal that I was literally having nightmares about it. It's crazy, but it's such a good series. And like, disclaimer of, I always have dreams about what I'm reading in like weird ways. So that it's not like, oh my God, this is so intense, everyone's gonna have nightmares about this. No, I purely think this is a me problem. Fonda Lee, the author, is one of those authors that's kind of like George R. R. Martin with Game of Thrones. Like, everybody's on the table. Anybody could die, right? And some of the death and character death decisions that she makes in this book, like, you don't believe that it's actually happened or that they happen at certain times. And it was just so crazy. But so the book follows these 3 siblings who are like next in line to be the head of the No Peak clan. And their other warring clan is called the Mountain. And so it's like their grandfathers were at peace when there was like the other countries in this world were all trying to attack this small island because this is the only place that you can mine jade. You're following these 3 siblings when I think they're like teenagers or early 20s, as they're basically getting ready to step into these leadership positions. And one is going to be like the head of the clan, and one is going to be business side of things, and then one is like the military side. First of all, she writes characters so well. You care about these characters so much, like from the jump. And then the way that she makes you care about them, and all of them are morally gray because, you know, they're like, oh, go kill this person. Oh, go kill this person. And you're like, am I supposed to be rooting for these people? But like, there was a moment in book 2 or book 3, I can't remember. I think I might have texted you during it because I was getting so close to the end of the book and I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to finish this while I'm eating dinner because I don't want to have nightmares about this tonight. And I remember I was literally eating my bowl of Chipotle, and I was reading it, and I just, like, started sobbing into my Chipotle bowl. That has never happened to me before. Like, I had to stop eating. If anyone has read the series, they probably know actually, I don't even know if they would know exactly because there's a lot of gut punch moments in this, but that was such a good series. And that was a series that I was, like, really intimidated by, that had been sitting on my shelves for a while, but I know I'm gonna like this series. I'm just gonna try the first one. And I read the first one in May, couldn't stop thinking about it the entire summer, read the second one in August, I think, and then I went straight into the third one in September because I was just like, "I can't stop thinking about this series." It was crazy. Oh my god. So, okay, give me a book that took up a lot of your headspace this year.
Okay. I'm gonna say The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee
Audier, I think.
Adier? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And honestly, I think this was one of the most intriguing premises that I've read in quite some time.
Okay.
Essentially, there's this kingdom and there's a young prince, and every single evening, the prince takes a new bride and marries her. And in the morning, he has her executed every single day. And now over 70 women have now been killed in like 70 days. And so the FMC, her best friend, was one of the brides chosen. And so her friend dies. And so she volunteers to be next. And so she voluntarily goes to this palace. And she's, the first time in 70 something days, no bride dies in the morning. And so there's kind of like 2 plot lines coming through of just like how does she convince him to not kill her? And then also, why is he doing this?
Mhm.
This is such a great premise. Can I please tell everyone about it? So, I'm gonna go with that.
Love it. Okay. What's a book that either made you happy or a book that you had the most fun reading?
Okay. Alright, so, you know how everyone says that everyone who read all the girlies who read Harry Potter growing up are now reading Fourth Wing, right?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so for all the girlies who read the Stephanie Plum novels by Janet Ivanovich, this is like the adult version of that. First of all, this series is not that old. It's like less than 5 years old, and there's like 17 books in it. They're all super
Yeah.
short. I'm pretty sure the first one, most of them are under 300 pages. So like, we're talking like 290. Okay.
Mhm.
And essentially, they're like good-hearted like mysteries kind of thing, but also like pretty dirty. And it's kind of like a CSI book, like whatever. Like it's a CSI detective type series where essentially the FMC, she's a forensics expert
Oh.
in a new town, and essentially like has a very steamy interaction, like her first day in town with who ends up being like a police officer. So these two kind of team up to every single book. It's again, it follows like the Stephanie Plum format where every single book is like a new mystery of like who's on the
Mhm.
table, in the CSI lab. But then
Yeah.
also then, like, through each book, you have the undercurrent of the main love interest, which again, like,
Yeah.
no longer PG kind of thing. So it's like a little, like, smutty, very short, like, fun books. And so if you just, like, need, like, a lighthearted read and also something that's actually well written, like, go for
Mhm.
these books. Although I realize I have not said the title. I don't remember what the actual name of the series is, but the first book is called Sinful Justice by Amelia Finn. I read 3 in 3 days because 'cause they're so short and they're so
Yeah.
easy. It takes, like, 0 mental capacity. Also, there's one side character that I'm very, very intrigued by, and apparently she's written, like, a standalone of, like, him and his main love interest
Oh.
that like, let's be real, I'm not gonna read 17 of these books, okay? They're fun, they're there when they're
You might
there.
eventually.
Yeah, but eventually, like, if I just really need, like, a palate cleanser, I might go back to them. But I
Mhm.
do want to read this side character book.
Yeah. It's funny because I had a similar experience this year with it sounds like it's a similar concept of it's a cozy mystery series, and I just, like, stumbled upon it because somebody randomly recommended it. It's called The Bake Shop Mysteries series by Ellie Alexander. Also, there's, like, 20 some books in this series. It's been going on for, I don't know, maybe 10 years at this point. But it's basically like this woman is a pastry chef and she finds out something about her husband and they were working on this cruise ship together. So she leaves, she goes back to her hometown in Oregon. It's like a small town. And then all of a sudden, like each book, somebody dies and it's a mystery. And she owns a cafe bakery with her mom. And so the backdrop of this is like her love life and all these different side characters, and it's all like very wholesome, and they're talking about baking and stuff throughout the book, but they're also like trying to solve a murder. So it's like, it is interesting and it was a good time. And I definitely used those as like palate cleansers in between. But the one I was going to say is I have 2 actually for just something I had so much fun reading or just, like, made me really happy. They're both by the same author, and it's First Time Caller and Good Spirits by BK Borison, who's actually from our area, interestingly. She does live in DC. But these are just romance books that were such a fun time. I think she writes banter really, really well, and it's very believable. First Time Caller is about this single mom, and she gets invited to go on this radio show because her daughter, who I think is either 10 or I think she's 10, she calls into the show and the show is like all about love. And the host is very disillusioned with love from like, all the people that call in. He's like, oh, love doesn't exist or whatever. And the daughter calls in. She's like, I think my mom needs to have some love in her life. And so they invite her to come on the show. And then obviously it's a romance, but it was just like a very lighthearted, good time and kind of like a warm hug of a book. And then Good Spirits is actually a Christmas romance by the same author. And you normally think like a Christmas romance is going to be like really cheesy. There's going to be no substance to it or anything like that. This one was actually really good. But yeah, both of those were really fun. And I would definitely recommend if you want just like a fun romance, good time.
Amazing. As I said before, I think like a rom-com book is honestly like the hardest to get a good recommendation on because some of them are just like
Hmm.
so, oh my goodness, like
Yeah.
just like so lack of substance. I was like, I can't get it. I no
Hmm.
no man in my life has ever said these things.
Oh my God. Okay. I have another just like, oh, I guess we can talk about hyped books, category of hyped books and whether they're worth it or not. Okay. So the first one, I'm going to start positive. This was a new book this year, and I know everyone's talking about, and there's even a movie coming out about it next year or this year, and you need to read this book, and it's the new Hunger Games book. You
Mm.
need to read this book. It's Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, obviously. And one thing I'll say about Suzanne Collins is she doesn't put out a book unless she has something to say. And just the intro to that book, like the author's note. Hold on, I need to read this for you because this is very relevant for our time and place today in the year of
Oh, I'm
2026.
sure.
Okay, so there's a couple quotes in the beginning of this book. And the first one is from George Orwell. And it says, all propaganda is lies, even when one is telling the truth. I don't think this matters so long as one knows what one is doing and why. And then it talks about other stuff like government and corrupt governments. And this came out in 2025, and that's all I'll say. And so this book is really interesting because this is a prequel. So in the Hunger Games, you're following Katniss and Peeta, who are at the second book is the 75th Hunger Games, I think. This is the 50th Hunger Games, so 25 years before that, and it is Haymitch's story, and who is their mentor in the Hunger Games. And so this is written, what, 15 years after the previous Hunger Games books. And so you might be like, well, we obviously know that Haymitch won his Hunger Games because he's alive. So, like, therefore, he won his Hunger Games. And you know that he has a lot, like, has a big drinking problem and he has, like, a lot of trouble in his past. So you think you know what's going to happen in this book. I was so impressed reading this book because, like, the connections that she made that make the other books make more sense. How do you do that? Like, she must have planned this for literally 10 years to not miss a single connection. So if you want to read this book, I would highly recommend that you either reread the first and second book or at minimum just watch the movies because there are characters in those books that we get their backstory and find out the reasons they act the way they act in the future in like the first and second Hunger Games book in this one. And this is one where I also cried at the end. It was so good. Like, I think I finished this in, like, maybe 3 days. Like, I could not stop reading.
Absolutely insane. Okay,
Yeah.
hyped book. I have two. So one of the book that I said that I was going to read that I actually did this year is Sparkly Everflame, which is the first of The Kindred's Curse by Penn Cole. It was awesome. Again, I was still in a big reading slump. And as someone, like, I write for a living, like, I'm a copywriter and I've been a copywriter for 10 years. And so I do have a problem with like bad writing. And it was one, like, first sentence. I was like, oh, damn, this is going to be a good book. Like, first page,
Nice.
I'm in it, you know? And so I loved this book. And it was a little long, but I loved like the spark of the other flame. This has been now hyped as like the ultimate slow burn romance. My beef is that that slow burn has burned all the way the fuck out. Like, I am so over it. By book 2, I was like, when is this gonna switch? Like, it is positioned as a love triangle. However, it's one of those love triangles where, like, the second guy never stood a chance. It's very, very obvious. Like, this guy
Okay.
sucks. and he's still like a main character in book 2. And I'm just like, how are you being this like the main character? It was like sometimes I get frustrated with readers online when they're just like, "Oh my god, I hated this FMC. She's so annoying." I was like, "You do realize this person is made up, right? Like you were having beef with like a made up person." No, I had beef with this made up person. I was like, "Girl, like wake up. Like you are being a dumbass." And
Mhm.
so by the end of like book 2, I was like screaming at the book. I'm like, "I know. I get it." Like it was so painfully redundant. I just, like, couldn't stomach it anymore. Book 3, I've heard is so insanely long, like, it's genuinely, like, almost like I think it's like a 900-page book, and I don't plan on reading it. I was
Well, book
so
4
in
isn't even out yet,
Yeah,
and it
4 is
hasn't
not out,
been.
which is so funny. So this was, like, an indie author where, like, her book essentially, like, went viral and became so popular that then it was picked up by traditional publishing. So the first 3 books were essentially published in, like I don't know how she wrote these books so fast, but within 2 years, she wrote 3 very long books, and now there's a 4-year gap between books 3 and 4.
My god.
I Book 1 was so fantastic. I still care how this book turns out, but I have no intention of reading book 3. I am fully prepared to just, like, look online, find out a summary of what happens, and then go straight into book 4. Because, like,
Yeah.
it was too annoying. People still love this series. People like, this is their favorite book of the past, like, couple years, and I have to say, like, it's very well written. It's just, again, pacing is a big deal for me, and when it is so redundant, like, I genuinely felt like I read the same book twice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I genuinely can't even remember what happened in book 2 because I just felt like I reread book 1.
Yeah.
That I'm like,
Yeah,
"I can't do this."
I wanna read it, but I want to wait until I know when the 4th book is gonna be published.
No, and this is why when you said, like, "What was your favorite new release of the year?" My answer is, I don't
Yeah.
have one. Because,
Yeah.
like, I can't put myself through it, and I'm also, like, I'm, like, different than you where you're like, "I have to put books in between, I need to give myself a break." I'm the
Mhm.
opposite because, like, I hate forgetting what happened, and I want the
Yeah.
momentum to carry me through, so I want to, like, read, like, completed series, like, start to finish, and also,
Mhm.
whenever I take breaks, I feel like I never actually finish the series. There was one point this year that I was texting Dana, and I was like, "Oh my god, there's nothing that I wanna read, like, nothing is calling me the hook." And she's like, "Kara, you might have to suck it up and read a new release. Like, you have got to stop only
Yeah.
looking for completed series."
Mhm. Or at least books that have, like, a couple in the series and you know
Yeah.
when the next book is coming out, you know? But I feel like this year, I've seen a lot more people who enjoy reading various genres who are talking about the same new fantasy books within the last year. And so I'm feeling more confident that we're going in a better direction than some of the stuff that's been published the last couple of years that's just like, "Oh, this is popular on Kindle Unlimited, like, publish it with no edits," which I feel like has become really common.
Mhm.
But, yeah, I mean, I feel like the new releases I read this year, I talked about the Vera Wong one, and then, of course, Sunrise on the Reaping, like, if you've read The Hunger Games, you can read that one.
Right.
And then another romance book that came out this year is actually called If It Makes You Happy. If you want, like, a feel-good romance, it's this one because this takes place in 1997 in Vermont. So it's like peak 90s nostalgia, small town in the fall vibes. Confession time. I've never seen Gilmore Girls, but people who like Gilmore Girls apparently really love this book because there's like some of those same vibes. But it was just such a fun time. And then compounding that, like I read this book when I was visiting my alma mater, Middlebury, in the fall in Vermont. So like that made it even more enjoyable. But it was just, like, such a fun time, and it's, like, a single dad romance. He has, like, a teenager, and he has, like, maybe a 7 or 8-year-old. The kids in this story were so funny, and I love when kids, like, add to the story because 'cause they're old enough to have their own personalities and, like, impact the way that the plot is going and stuff. Plus, the woman inherits basically her ex's border collie, and this border collie is so judgmental of the main character. It's so funny, and it's written in there. I think his name is Rocket. It's like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, Rocket's definitely judging her right now." And the dog was basically like a character in the book too, but it was just such a fun time. And that book was going crazy viral this past fall, but I think it was worth it for sure.
Amazing. I only have one book left on my list.
Is it a hyped book?
Technically, yes.
Okay, then I have one more too. So you do that one, then I'll do this one. And then we can talk about like what are the books that you like top 2 or 3 that you really want to make sure that you read this year?
Realm Breaker. Should I say that for the third year in a row? Okay, no. Hyped book because the first one was a New York Times bestseller. I'm pretty sure the second one was too, by Danielle L. Jensen, who wrote Bridge Kingdom, which is one of my favorite books of all time. The sequel was A Curse Carved in Bone. The first one, I don't know, Dana, you gave it to me for my wedding. What is it called? Oh,
Fate Inked in Blood.
Fate Inked in Blood. Okay, so this girl, this author, Danielle
Wait,
L.
that was
Jensen.
like your favorite book of last year.
Yeah, totally. And then like the
Okay.
sequel came out this year. So this
Okay,
says
I'm
new
afraid-
release. I could have said that. My bad.
Oh,
Anyways, this Danielle L. Jensen had literally written like 17 books. And this was the first book in the series. It's her first ever New York Times bestseller. So I was like very excited for the
congrats to
author.
her.
And then afterwards, I think Bridge Kingdom, which she wrote before, I think it actually hit the New York Times bestseller list because then people discovered this author. So I was very
That's
just
so
happy
cool.
for her. But essentially, it's a romantasy based on Vikings, which I thought was kind of rare. And so going like more of a Scandinavia vibe, where it is like butt cold outside. It's like definitely different. Book 1 ended on a huge, huge, huge cliffhanger. And so was really looking forward to book 2, but I obviously had to wait a year for it. And fortunately, second book, it lived up to the hype. Also,
Oh, thank God. I thought you were going to say you didn't like it.
no, seriously. And that was like one of my worst fears. I was like, please don't let me down because I'm like, yeah, I just like really needed a W. So yeah, I loved it. Not much I can say about it simply because it's the second book of the
It's a
series. So
sequel.
everything I talk about would be a spoiler for book 1. But again, romantasy, Vikings, 2 main characters. It's like enemies to lovers, sort of kind of thing. But what I love about Danielle L. Jensen is she doesn't give you just a morally gray man. She gives you a morally gray woman. And I love that. Like I love, honestly, if I had to say like my favorite writer for like female characters, it is Danielle L. Jensen. So I love the strong female leads that this author gives us.
This one was super hyped this year. So the last one I'll talk about is Dungeon Crawler Carl. Have you heard of this one? Okay.
Not at
So-
all. Never heard of it.
Okay. So this is huge in some circles. So Dungeon Crawler Carl was an indie published book, like cult indie published book, now getting traditionally published. There are already 7 books in the series, and the 8th book is coming out next year. So this is what is called a lit RPG, which means like literary role-playing game. So basically, it's like a video game turned into a book. And there are different levels to this dungeon, basically, that this main character is trying to descend towards to like win this game, essentially. But so at the beginning of the book, first of all, this book is phenomenal in audio form. Okay. I did have a really good time with this book. I do have my gripes about it because there's definitely aspects of like bro video game culture in it. It's not like, yeah, this is good, you know? So you can see that he's not like pro all these things, but there's still some stuff in there I'm like, this could have been left out. So I would say it's like a 4-star, and I have my criticisms, but I've heard the series gets like even better and better. But so the main character, Carl, the very beginning of the book, it's the middle of the night. It's freezing. He realizes that he's left the window open. His ex-girlfriend he's just broken up with because he found out she was cheating on him. Her cat, which is like a prize-winning cat named Princess Donut, jumps out the window. Okay. It's the middle of the night. It's like 2 a.m. He goes outside. He's like only in his boxers, not even wearing shoes. And he's like, God damn it, cat. He's God damn it, donut. You'll hear that so much throughout the book. But he's trying to find the cat. And then all of a sudden, every single thing that has a surface in the entire world, including any buildings, any structures, overhangs, cars, everything is smushed completely. The only people who are still left alive are people who were outside when this happened. Then all of a sudden, this announcement comes from the ether, and it's like, greetings, Earthlings. You're now part of this like alien game show called Dungeon Crawler World. And basically, these portal doors open, and you have 2 choices. Either you can stay outside on Earth where there's no resources anymore and probably freeze to death, or you could go down into this dungeon and like try not to die, basically. And so he goes, and it's really like you're reading a video game. And I've never been like that kind of video game person. I'm much more of like a cozy, fun, chill video games. But it was so fun. And I was listening to this while I was driving back and forth to swim practice in the summer. And everyone you talk to who has read this book will say the audiobook is the way to go because the narrator, I think his name is Jeff Hayes. It's similar to the way that Jim Dale does the Harry Potter audiobooks in that he does a different voice for every single character and you would never know that it's the same person. And there's also like sound effects and there's an AI that kind of narrates different stages in the dungeon. And so it'll be like, you know, Carl defeated some enemy or something and it'll be like, new achievement. You just got blah, 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 blah. And the AI is weird also. Like, it just said some like unhinged shit sometimes. So I read the first or listened to the first and second book this year. I'm definitely going to continue, but I understand why people love it so much. And then with each book, you basically descend a level and it gets like harder and harder and harder. You get more of the politics of like the interplanetary systems and like the politics behind the game and everything. So if you want like a completely out of left field, this is nothing like I've ever read before recommendation, that's kind of like a ridiculous fun time, I would recommend it.
Amazing. I love that.
These will be for me, these are going to be self-destructing books, meaning if I don't read or at least attempt these by the time that we record this next year, I have to unhaul these books and either give them to someone else or donate them or whatever. They're no longer going to be in my library because if I haven't read them by that point, what am I doing?
Right. Okay, totally fair. All right, my first one, it was like so highly recommended. It was literally my birthday, and my husband and I were going out to happy hour, and we went too early and it wasn't open yet. And across the street was a bookstore. I was like, haha,
You're like, oh no,
buy me books for my birthday. And so this was like super high recommended. The Tainted Cup
I
by
want to read that one too. Let's read it together.
by Robert Jackson Bennett. I have no idea what it's about, but it was like so highly recommended in this bookstore.
Oh,
They
it's
had,
like a history in a fantasy world, apparently.
yeah, and apparently
really cool.
I thought it was a standalone, but more books are
There's
coming out.
two.
There's 2 now published.
There might be more, but
So
okay, the first one that has been on my shelves for I think 4 years at this point, and this is again just like City of Brass and Jade City. I'm very confident that I'm going to like this one, but I'm just intimidated by it. Called The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is like a cornerstone of the sci-fi fantasy genre, and I need to read that this year. I've been saying for years that I'm going to read this book, and I haven't, but I'm trepidatious, but I'm gonna read it.
you know so much about these books. Like I don't know anything about like the books. I just like bought them at bookstores, and these are coming highly recommended. But my second one is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed, which again, since I bought it, I now see it all over the place. I could not tell you what it's about. Like no idea.
I think it's Dark Academia.
Sounds good. I'm down. But yeah.
Well, okay, speaking of Dark Academia, I also want to read Babel by R.F. Kuang. I've read every other one of her books so far, and I do like her writing style. This one is supposed to be pretty dense, but I also read her Catabasis earlier this year, and I liked it. I know a lot of people had a lot of feelings about that book. I guess we could have talked about that one in Hyped Books. I thought it was good. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I see a lot of the criticism for that book. But yeah, I'm excited to read Babel because it's about like colonization and the magic of translation and other stuff at Oxford. So it sounds really cool. It sounds like something I'll really like. But again, I'm just intimidated. But it is a standalone. So I'm like, I can do it.
Amazing. The last book I'm going to say is Black Sun, which has been talked about.
Yes. Oh my God.
And honestly, I need to read that just so I can give it back to you. I've now had this, like borrowed this from Dana, 3 years ago? At least.
Maybe, yeah.
I need to give it back to you. Dana is one of the few people I trust to lend my books to and vice versa. Honestly, I need to go back to the library. I need to get out of my KU whatever and like read like
Yeah.
a book. I need something to feel obsessed with. But as I said, like I had a very short list. This was my shortest list of books that I had to talk about on your podcast since I started doing these with you. But I'm happy that I had a list because at the beginning of the
Yeah.
year, I was like, dear God, I'm not going to have anything to talk
Yeah.
about.
Okay, my last one, and I would say, am I more intimidated by this than the 5th season? Probably, because it's so long. So, last year, I finished the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, which is where, like, a lot of people say you should start with Brandon Sanderson's work. So, at the book sale where I volunteer every year, a couple years ago, they had The Way of Kings, which is the first book in the Stormlight Archive series by Brandon Sanderson. Each book is like 1,000 pages. Actually, 1,000 pages. Hold on.
No, absolutely
Yeah.
no. I mean, immediately I
What?
know I'm never going to read this series. Like, no. Add
And
some
it's
mud and you can build a house with that.
okay, it's 999 pages.
Absolutely not. Immediately no. Immediately no.
So, I'm gonna try it. That is my goal. People are either obsessed with it, and it's their favorite series of all time, and, like, I can do a slow book. I can, right? So, I don't think that's gonna be the issue. It's just so intimidating. It's so huge. But, like, this is the shortest book in this series. But then there are other people that it's like, "Oh, it's just so slow, and it's very convoluted, and whatever." So, I at least wanna try it because last year, I found book 3 and book 4 in the same edition at the book sale, and they're $2 because they're paperbacks. So I have them, and they're taking up, like, a third of one of my shelves because they're so big. So I'm either gonna try it, and I'm gonna love it, and I'm gonna continue, or I'm not gonna like it. I'm gonna unhaul all 3 of them, and I'll have more space on my shelves. So that's my goal.
I don't know why I thought of this, but I thought of 2 more that I actually know about these books. Basically, because of Fourth Wing, all of our favorite YA authors are now being like, I think like coerced by their publishers into writing adult
Yeah.
fantasy.
Oh.
Or maybe they just wanted to, but there's
Yeah.
no one's writing YA right now. Everyone's writing adult. And so 2 of my favorite authors of all time have written adult fantasy or are about to publish their first book. One is Bridget Kemmerer,
Yeah, it's Warrior something,
Warrior
right?
Princess Assassin. It has been on my list for forever. I thought it was a standalone. It's not. She's currently writing
Oh.
the sequel. And then the second one is Victoria Aveyard, who wrote Red Queen
Tempest.
and Realmbreaker, which I swear to God one day I'm going to read. But she wrote Tempest because she was obsessed with Pirates of the Caribbean when she was little. And
Oh my god, yeah, we have to read that.
oh my God. I was like, that was like my first favorite movie. Like, I don't know how old I was when that came out. Like maybe like 12 or 13, but I loved Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
I thought of that because her manuscript was like almost 300,000 words. Her publisher was like, girl, split this into 2 books. So the first one comes out in September, and then the second book is going to come out next year. Definitely plan on
Oh
reading
my
it.
god. I can't wait. Well, I would love to hear what everyone's best highlights and everything books of the year are. I'm always so curious to see what people have been loving this past year and what you guys are looking forward to. We'd love to know.
Seriously. And as always, we are all, if you have a completed series that you love that we have not talked about yet, please send it our way because that is just the chef's kiss.
It can be from like 10, 15 years ago. We're good on that.
Yeah. Love it.